Okay, so if you're watching this, you've probably been drawn in by my title because, well, yeah, this is perhaps a bit of a hot and spicy take, or maybe not. Maybe this is exactly what you think is going to happen in the coming seasons. But yes, it's true, I firmly am of the belief that Marinette and Adrienette, the biggest ship of the franchise, is going to go up in flames and sink. Adrien and Marinette are going to break up at some point over the course of Season 6 or beyond. And before we go any further than that, a couple of things to address. I'm no hater. I don't dislike any of the characters. Cat Noir and Ladybug, they're fine in my book. Perhaps they're not always written as well as they could be, but that is what it is. So, I'm not coming at this concept from a wish fulfillment point of view, where I'm sitting there deviously rubbing my hands together at the idea of Cat Noir getting humbled and smacked down. I'm not crying over my keyboard as I finish up my 74th chapter of a fanfic where Adrien dumps Marinette for being a creepy stalker, and her social life spirals and she's ostracized by everybody. I just don't vibe with that. I'm on board with the ship. You dedicate 5 seasons and 8 years of an entire show to a storyline like that, and you better believe that I expect this storyline to be the end game. So I'm not super hyped at the idea of them breaking up. In fact, it kind of has me resigned to it. I don't particularly think it's in any way a good idea or top-level writing. I think it's a dumb way to take the story as a whole, a pretty lazy plot twist that, in simple terms, is likely just there as drama for the sake of drama, with little substance beyond it. But I just think that the writing's on the wall at the same time, with the groundwork being laid down already, from both a meta-writing perspective, but then also an in-story perspective, with how the narrative's gone so far and the seeds that have been planted, mostly towards the end of Season 5. Well, towards the end. Literally in the finale. But at the same time, I do think that's all it's going to be, a cheap plot twist, a story diversion that's there to extend out some storylines and give characters something to do. It's a tried and tested method after all, and this show in particular has a history of backtracking and rehashing its storylines again and again. But we'll get to that in a moment, won't we? First, we have to give some context. Just in case you've somehow forgotten, Adrienette, as in the relationship between main characters, Marinette and Adrien, is and always was one of the driving forces behind a lot of the story progression of Miraculous overall. In the early seasons, so like Season 1, 2, 3 specifically, it was a major source of story focus. Feels like almost every episode was revolving around somebody thirsting, and then either Marinette/Ladybug activating stalker mode and following around Adrien and getting in his business to a weird degree, or Cat Noir/Adrien being mega cringe and pushy, and constantly getting shot down and making the team dynamic somewhat uncomfortable. As the show progressed over time, we started to dig deeper into the various different storylines. Chloe and her failed redemption arc, Lila versus Marinette, Kagami, Luca, Jagged Stone, Emily and Gabe, Gabe and Adrien, Nino and Alia, Alia becoming Marinette's sidekick and confidant, Zoe and Chloe, Zoe and Marinette, Kagami and Marinette becoming good friends, Tomoe and Gabe and their team up and what it means for the story, Felix versus Gabe, Felix and Kagami, the Senti monsters, the Senti people. And that's just all from the top of my head. You could probably think of some more if you even just sit there for 20 seconds. But beneath it all is that undercurrent of Adrienette. And that story really started to pick up steam once and for all during the course of Season 5, where at long last Adrien decided, Ladybug? Who needs her? And instead realizes that he has romantic feelings for Marinette, not knowing that they are the same person. And of course, nothing is simple in the land of Miraculous, and so much of the season was dedicated to them getting together, and then trying to stay together in the face of Adrien's dad trying to ship him with Kagami instead. So like I said, no matter how far we go with some of these storylines, the one that's always driven the most story and the most interest and engagement from the fan base has clearly been the story of Adrienette overall. Like, that is just the honest-to-goodness truth, and going forward into Season 6 and beyond, I fully expect that that's going to continue to be the case. Don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting that development's going to be something that happens in the next couple of episodes or anything like that. I just think it's an inevitability of the next overarching story arc. That one of the story beats is going to involve our dynamic duo, for a limited time, going their separate ways. And they're not going to break up for long. Take a look at how long the relationships of Adrien and Kagami and Luca and Marinette lasted, like an episode apiece. That is the kind of timeline we're dealing with. Maybe. I mean, wouldn't it be wild if they broke up for longer? Like half a season or even a full season? That would be wild writing. A very brave decision, and would be the wrong thing to do. But I think it would be funny to see nonetheless. After all, sometimes you just want to see how the fandom would react to some absolutely bonkers writing decisions. At the very least, I think it would be rather funny for the social media storm as the fandom burns itself down. Maybe Asterix should write a April Fool's non-canon episode script to troll us all and then pretend to leak it. That would instantly make me overlook any of his flaws as a writer and his rather whack online presence forever. He would become goated through these actions. Do it, son, do it! But regardless, like I said, there are actual legitimate reasons as to why I think this is going to be the case at some point in the future. Not immediately, gotta have that honeymoon period after all. Probably at least a season to get things going before you introduce such drama, but if there's one thing I've noticed from writers of seemingly every genre known to mankind, it's that they legit despise having to write stable and non-dramatic relationships, and so they always seem to shoehorn in drama to make it more exciting, give them topics and ideas for episodes and storylines without having to put in the work to think of something fresh. And so what could be better than having them break up and redoing the will they won't they storyline? You can see this sort of hack writing across all of media history. Friends famously did it with Ross and Rachel. In my lifetime, that is the OG, and I think it was actually done well enough there. The show's still really good after they break up, and it doesn't derail the story. But for some more recent examples, and most importantly, an example of it being very shit, is in the show The Dragon Prince, where the main couple gets together in season 3, I think it was, only to break up off-screen in a tie-in book. Lame. And then they rehash their story for an additional 3 seasons just for some added drama. And if you're wondering, I think if Miraculous goes down this similar path, it is going to end up being shit. But I don't know. I just feel like it's in the cards for that reason. It's very much a break glass in case of emergency type of storyline, and this show just loves a rehash. Like Chloe and her whole storyline. How many times do we need to see that play out? And apparently they're bringing her back again in the next season. Whew. Plus, think of how many times they've done an identity reveal only to backtrack it with mind control or time travel or something like that. Ridiculous. So can you really deny that rehashing played out storylines and recycling plots is something that's beneath Miraculous? You can't, because it isn't. And I just think at this point it's a certainty. Especially since there seems to be so many different story threads that are pointing in that direction or can be used to achieve that goal. Because yeah, like I said, even for reasons beyond the meta and more firmly rooted within the narrative itself, there's evidence to suggest that this is the play. I think the most glaring is, well, Adrien doesn't know about his dad. He doesn't know his dad was Hawkmoth the entire time. He didn't know his dad was trying to bring back Emily. He doesn't know that he cataclysmed his own father, and he certainly doesn't know that Ladybug's been lying to him since the defeat of Hawkmoth, and is allowed to build this lie, that Gabriel was a massive hero. She's allowed that falsehood to take over Paris and become legend. He even has a statue now. And so a well-rounded narrative, you'd think. Well, you'd expect that at some stage, Adrien needs to learn these things. That his dad was a villain, and that Ladybug's been lying. And on top of that, I also think that sooner rather than later, they need to do an identity reveal, right? Right? Now that Hawkmoth is cooked, and all the minor heroes have been given Miraculouses, with Alia knowing Ladybug's identity, oh, and don't forget that Felix and Kagami also know, and Marinette knows they know, so why would she not trust her identity to her new boyfriend, considering how much she loves and adores and trusts him? Maybe not right away, but after a certain point of time, I think it makes a lot of sense. And if you really want to force the drama, you can have him hide that he's Cat Noir because she tells him, as she's revealing her identity to him, that she trusts him and, I don't know, that Cat Noir can never know. I don't know, I'm not a writer. Just something that prevents him from saying anything. And so now, he knows who Ladybug is, he's hiding from her, but their relationship's still strong and everything's going well. But then you have to stop and think. Who are the largely obvious villains of the next upcoming saga? Sadly, Chloe's coming back, but let's move on from her. But more likely, it's Lila and Tomoe. Now, Lila knows that Gabe was Monarch, and she hates everybody, it seems. Would it be so out of the blue for her to want to ruin his name and legacy and hurt Adrien along the way? Not really. I don't think so, especially since she would know that Ladybug's lying about Gabe being a hero, and she hates Ladybug too. I mean, shit, remember her origin episode? So why wouldn't she go out of her way to try to damage people's trust in Ladybug? So that one in particular is an avenue you could follow. A villain with a motive to reveal who has the opportunity to do so. Plus, she has that laptop which I'm sure has evidence on it, so you could go with that. Or who's another villain that you could use? How about Tomoe? Remember, she was Gabriel's accomplice in the final season. She helped him craft his rings of power. She helped him plan. And clearly she wanted a slice of the miraculous pie. And now she's taken over his holdings and plans to live up to his legacy or whatever it was she said. So, I don't think it's hard to imagine a scenario where it makes sense to reveal that he was Monarch to the world. I know they said the Agrest arc is over and done with, but I think the echoes of that arc are still going to be felt going forward, so to me this all makes a lot of sense. You don't really need the plot specifics of it, but at some point I think it's going to come out publicly, and then of course Adrien, well, unless he's truly afflicted by the Agrest smooth brain, is going to easily piece together that 1, he cataclysmed his dad, which is going to be bad for his mental health, and 2, his girlfriend has been lying to him and feeding him bullshit this entire time. You can have their relationship implode here, maybe an akumatization, maybe not, but it does feel Akuma-worthy. Hell, could this be the legendary Marinette akumatization? Is that how you pull that off? Because you'd need a really big event for that ever to be justified. Maybe, but I think that's a video for another day. But yeah, to me it just seems obvious that this is the pathway. I'm happy to be wrong, as I do think it's a tired trope to always break up the main couple at least once and create artificial drama. But here maybe I'm just coping, But along the course of this video, I've actually convinced myself that it could be a good idea if they follow the plot points that I just mentioned and use it to do a Marinette akumatization, because that's just such a big event. But hey, maybe I'm just high on my own supply. Regardless, I think it's happening. But of course, as you know, these have just all been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of the potential Adrienette implosion? Since I've changed my tune, are you on board with me that it could be useful to a Marinette akumatization event, or maybe you disagree, maybe you think it's a terrible idea? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.